Birdie Wing also has a video game that has been released, and I just really hope that it's like The Simpsons golf. What is it again? Lee Carvello's
putting challenge.
Yeah, I really hope that Birdie Wing is like that. You have selected.
You select a putter. You have selected one wood. Might I suggest feather touch? You have selected power drive.
Honestly, that is the plot of Birdie Wing. She would just select power drive the whole time.
Well, hello, and welcome back to Gateway to Anime. How are you all? What's going on? This is the podcast where we try and throw open the gate to make sure no one is gate-kept for anime. We try and share our love and passion for the medium with all of you, whether you're old, new, or a returning fan. This is the show where we try and make sure that you're getting into what is new, what is old, and what is happening in the world of anime. Ever wanted to get into anime but didn't know where to start? This is the podcast for you. Charlie, how you going?
I'm good. You know what I realized recently?
What's that?
You never introduce yourself. You never say what your name is. Go ahead. I actually realized this the other day. I was like, I don't think Sam has ever said, I'm Sam.
That's true. I am
It's
Sam.
been this huge mystery for everyone this entire time. They're like, who the hell is this guy? We know Charlie.
this
We
guy?
know Gerald. We're like,
Who's this man yelling at us all the time? No, indeed, I am Sam. I am one of your co-hosts, and this is, of course, Charlie, my sister.
Hello.
And this is our very good friend and returning guest, one of our absolute favorites and very good friend of both Charlie and I. This is Mr. Gerald Lillywhite. Gerald, how are you, friend?
Hi, very good. Thanks for having me back.
So, Gerald, also quickly, what do you do for a living? Tell people a little bit about yourself. I think it's a good thing to do.
Sure. I got a funny one. I work in the arts as well.
One of us.
I did an English degree, nailed it. And on the back of that, started working in the Australian film industry and worked for so many years in development, which is everything that happens before films go into production. So finding talent and a lot of screenplay development. And over the last couple of years, have kind of transitioned into freelance writing as well. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
A little bit about Jerry.
also, he really brushed over his career as a university playwright, which I had the pleasure of starring in a couple of those
Yeah.
shows back in the day.
That's how
So
Charlie and I met.
That's
Yeah.
a bit of a, folklore,
Folklore.
i.e. reality that happened. Truth.
Truth law?
Literal facts. Yeah.
A
No,
long
Gerald.
time ago now, though, because we're old.
Oh, we're so old.
Getting old.
But you know what we still love? Cartoons. So,
Made in Japan, specifically.
and we're here to talk about that.
We sure are. So today we're going to retread over a topic we've mentioned in our 5th ever episode. We've realized we've got a bit better at this. And also this is a topic that just needs approaching because this combines two of Gerald and my greatest loves. And that is, of course, sports and anime. Yes, that's right. We are doing episode Sports 2.0 because the first time wasn't anywhere near enough. So, sport and anime. An absolute match made in heaven. You cannot really come across two things that actually go as well together as sports and anime does. So, Gerald, just a little bit, how much do you love sports anime?
You know how in this day and age, your YouTube kind of front page is such a reflection of who you are as a person.
Oh, yes.
Mine is like extremely eclectic because there's anime, there's music, there's sport, there's everything. And to me, sports anime combines two of these very eclectic loves that I have because they're essentially the same thing. They're both narrative.
Yes. 100%. 100%. Now, Charlie, you're obviously, as you mentioned in the first podcast we did all the way back in 2020, the middle of COVID, you're the black sheep of the family in respect to not being a sport fan.
And in heaps of other ways as well.
So many other
don't
ways,
worry.
but we're not going.
Okay.
I wasn't told this before now. You know, this shock is real. Charlie, how did this happen?
Sport.
We're going to revoke your Australia card. Oh, you might be too keen to do that. So,
See ya. No, I grew up in a household full of AFL fans, diehard AFL fans, and I don't hate sport. I really don't. And also, the reason, like, I can appreciate people's talent. I just don't have much interest in like following along. And I really respect, because I do think then the older I've gotten, I used to just be a big blanket like, sport, like,
Sports ball.
Because I hate playing it, but watching it is a different thing entirely. And I think that the more I kind of think about it, and I think it makes, as you said, anime and sport go together so well. And a lot of my friends who are such diehard fans, it's like there's their own narratives, and it's like storyline, as you said, narrative, everything. It's like a soap opera in itself. You get attached to the players. There's so much to lose. So I can see the excitement behind it. I just can't be bothered getting invested in that. I'm just too much of a fangirl for too many other things. If I add sport, it's just like I don't want to open those gates, you know?
Hit your bandwidth. That's fair enough.
That's fair.
It's just like I've already got on my YouTube channel, like front page, it's just, musical theatre songs and anime. I can't fit. I can't fit any sport videos.
Persona 5 reactions. There's nothing more that can...
Who hit the Jean Valjean note the best on 24601. So
That's a deep cut.
Man tries to recite original 151 Pokemon. Like, and click.
absolutely.
One, sir. Me.
I do like a lot. There are some sport anime, and I'm not quite as into it as you guys are.
No.
But there's so many things. Like my favorite things about anime include tournament arcs. Hello, that's sport. Where did tournaments start? Sports. Gladiators. Gladiator the movie. Is it a sport? Sorry, I'm going to bring everything back
a very
to
long bow.
Sam, here's a question for you. In your sporting career, did you ever make regionals? Did you go to regionals?
Didn't make, well, I don't know. Australia's weird like this. We won the cricket. My dad coached a cricket team to a I guess a regional championship, I suppose. Yeah.
You'll take it.
We'll take it. We'll take it. Good times. Good times.
Is regionals just like state finals?
It's the level 1 tournament before you get to state.
Yeah.
Don't get ahead of yourself.
Sorry.
This podcast has to clear regionals before we can...
Haven't you watched Glee?
I'm still at the point where I need to get enough people to join the team so the club can stay alive. That's how far back I am in my sport anime arc.
You're the community film about the...
Yeah.
So quickly, I mentioned this in the first episode, but I didn't really actually get in depth. But
You didn't? I thought you...
Oh, no. I mean, I went into depth with a lot of things. But this, I mentioned that the word to describe sport anime is Spokon, right? Now, thanks to a gentleman or woman on Mal by the name of Lightsparker, they're going to give us a little example of what Spokon actually means, because it's not just as simple as sport.
Is this an academic source?
They're coming. Don't worry. If you think the philosophy sports site wasn't hit up again for this podcast, you are sorely mistaken and foolish, and shame on all of you for thinking it wasn't happening. But before I get philosophical, let's get Spokon. Spokon comes from several acronyms. Sopotsu, which means sport, Kondo, which means spirit, and also Kon, which means obsession. Spokon Anime is the original Japanese tag for what we call in English sport anime, plainly for short, when perhaps it would be more correct sport spirit anime. That is to say, the Spokon Anime is not only related to sports, but also sportsmanship, competition, and ambition for victory. It's usually very easy to know when an anime is Spokon, but then I have prepared a simple and powerful definition that does not give rise to confusion, and he goes into a definition, and we don't need to go into that. But sport spirit anime. I think that's really quite important. So thank you, Mr. or Mrs. Lightsparker. Very well played. Very well written out. So sports spirit anime. And all of the shows we're going to talk about heavily involve that, because as we mentioned before, a lot of these shows tend to just be kind of shonen battle animes transported into sport. And of course, they also have many high school rom-com tropes. Again, as Charlotte was mentioning before, for those of you who weren't familiar, the classic thing of, oh my gosh, my insert interest, sport club, drama club, debate club, fucking pottery club is about to be disbanded because we don't have enough members. That is like trope 101 in any high school anime of any sort that you will ever find. And probably none more so than in sport. So I guess...
And it never fails. It's always outstanding way to shape a series.
It's
perfect.
Stakes. Ticking time bomb.
Underdog story.
Underdog. Like getting people who never thought they'd enjoy the sport into that sport or interest. It just works every goddamn
Chosen
time.
family.
Chosen family. Nakama. All of the things. Nakama, which means closer than family. So
I'm a real sucker for the drama club ones. There's a couple
funny
of good
that.
ones. It is shock to us, but there's a couple of in Skip and Loafer. There's a particularly good drama club. There's a particularly
Gerald's
enthusiastic.
watched that as well.
There's a particularly enthusiastic member of the drama club who's trying to get one of the lead characters to join, and they're always it's just great. Good stuff, good gear.
You have to be careful because I could sidebar about Skip and Loafer for a good 2 podcasts worth. So that's another one to keep your eye
No
out
slice
for.
of life high school rom-coms
those playing
today.
at hand.
Only elements of. So now we need to talk about one of the big ones, and we did brush over it and only briefly mentioned it initially in the first sport episode of ours. But Gerald, why don't you talk to us about one of the seminal classics? Now, Ashita no Joe, which we did talk about the first time around, from the late 60s, is like the progenitor of boxing anime, which then became one of the classic story tropes, which was then pulled upon from all sorts of different sports shows. But Hajime no Ippo is a huge cornerstone of the Spokon sport anime genre. Gerald, why don't you talk to us about Hajime no Ippo, please?
Sure. And let me just say, that was only recent news to me because despite being, a somewhat long time anime fan, every time anyone would try and recommend this anime to me, I'm like, I don't like boxing. And I bring that up just because I think in terms of conceptualizing what makes a successful sports anime, one of the core things that we should put out there is it makes you give a shit about a sport that you would never imagine yourself caring about before. I know you did Haikyu last time.
If you think we're not talking about Haikyu again in this episode, and half the reason I made sure we're doing this episode again is to talk about Haikyu, of course, high school volleyball team.
So I'm on the record of saying that I get a lot of my anime recommendations from you. And so how many times do you think you had to call me to try and get to watch Haikyu?
It was a few.
I'm a busy guy. I don't have time to watch an anime about a high school boys volleyball team.
I thought the same thing.
What do I care about volleyball? It turns out I care so much. And so this is what was happening with Ippo. Boxing, I don't know. And all I can say is by the end of my experience burning through the 3 seasons of this anime, oh man, I care so much. And to the extent that, another square has opened up on my YouTube page of just like people explaining the intricacies of the sweet science of boxing. So Hajime no Ippo, as you said, it's a real genre originator. First started as a manga in 1989, I believe. Let me consult. 1989. And it has continued to the present day. So that is a long-ass time manga. The second longest running Shonen Jump title.
Wow.
It is written and illustrated by George Murakawa and was adapted into 3 anime series, the first of which began animation in 2000. Madhouse did that. The most recent one finished in 2014. It's gotten a big second life as a Netflix acquisition, where if you're looking for it, it might be listed under Fighting Spirit. So Hajime no Ippo is about a sweet kid, kind of a docile kid who, because of his quiet nature, is bullied at school. And one day, and this kid's so earnest, he helps his mum with their fishing business. He studies hard, but he doesn't have a lot of friends. And so one day he's coming home from school, and as per usual, a few bullies set upon him. Except this one day he gets rescued by a mysterious stranger who puts these bullies into the dirt with this wonderful display of boxing. And when Ippo wakes up, he's in this boxing gym and looking around, seeing all of these people trying to get the most out of themselves by being the best boxer they can. He decides that he's going to be a boxer. And would you believe it, when he throws his first punch into the bag, he's got some talent, all right? And so the story really follows this young kid's journey to become a boxer. And it doesn't spare any detail in taking you through all of the different steps that it involves, from preparing for matches, having to find opponents, the rigors of training. And one of the really key details that we'll get to is the family dynamics that pop up within this boxing gym. And so it really is as simple as that. And what makes a premise that simple have enough legs to begin in 1989 and to continue to this day is a few things to run through. One, Makunouchi Ippo is a really incredible character in that he's very, very simple. He is like the perfect example of the Japanese ideal. He never, taunts an opponent. He's always polite. He's not trying to be nice. He just really is nice. And in a different context, that could make for a really bland character, right? Like no faults. But in this specific context, it's such a wonderful character contradiction because what's he doing? He's getting into the ring to fight. And so you've got this contradiction where you've got one of the greatest up-and-coming fighters in Japan, but he's also a really sweet dude. And in the shonen tradition, what we're really following through this boxing is this immense struggle for him to go from quiet kid that gets bullied to a person who's confident in themselves and is, passionate about achieving a goal and has a direction, all these things. And it hits all those shonen beats
of course
with boxing. I mean, it sounds good, right?
Oh, man. It's crazy I haven't watched it. I mean, Megalobox which is sort of a reboot, remake-ish kind of thing of Ashita no Joe.
The other boxing one.
The other very famous boxing one was one of my favorite shows of 2018. And the remake, the second season in 2021? No, it was last year, 2022. One of the two. Anyway, I forget. But the season 2 absolutely blew my mind. I loved Megalobox, or Nomad was the second season. Absolutely adored it. But I've never watched Hajime no Ippo. And it's something which is, I know I'm going to love it. You just ticked every box is tick just then. And I've been knowing this for a long time, but I will get there. But God damn it, and the self-betterment side, and not just in sport anime, Spokon, it's in all kinds. I mean, at the end of the day, battle shonens are all about self-improvement. And they do it through power-ups and through training and whatnot, which is the same sort of thing with sport. Yeah. And that's why the two genres sort of meld so seamlessly, I think, because at the end of the day, it is that very Shinto belief of self-betterment, self-improvement, and, essentially cleansing yourself of your old self and building up a new, And
if I can speak to that for a moment, what Ippo does better than a lot of shows I've watched is to really take you into the minutiae of that struggle. He doesn't become amazing overnight. It really paces it well, just how much effort he has to go to be winning the first fights, much less regionals, much less, whatever comes after that, versus I think a lot of modern shonen kind of accelerate way too quickly into power fantasy, right? Yeah. And there's going to be a really big one that comes out soon.
Solo leveling,
which again, I like it for various reasons, but guilty and symptomatic of that trend that we're seeing where it's just all about perfect God King does God King things. Yeah. This is just like little wiener tries to do boxing and you're just like, fine, dude, you can do it. Just keep punching Ippo. Maybe it'll be all right. And so every time he achieves that next level, you do feel it. Do really feel it. It was reminiscent to me of Naruto in that way.
Yes.
Another shonen that paces, I think, for the most part pretty well.
100%. 100% agreed.
With the boxing being a solo sport, I think that's interesting because a lot of the typical sport anime that I think about are Haikyu, they're team sports. True. And it's all about, the power of friendship and working in a team and finding the right people. Yes. How do you think, there's a real differentiation between those in sport, and they kind of present differently in that way? Because I guess it's all about self-betterment for the solo thing, but it's also can be kind of like similar, and it reminds me of Blue Lock, where it's like the opposite. We're talking about a team sport, but the whole idea of Blue Lock is to be like, don't think of anyone else, be a narcissist, like do your own thing, and kind of. I wonder how many different sets there are working with a team sport versus not.
What I say about that is that 100%, and there's a great balance that they hit in this show. Where on the one hand, it is a team sport because the way that this gym works together. My favorite, so now that you've got the broad strokes, it's a shonen, it's boxing, you're going to feel some feelings as he gets better. My favorite part of it is it's a non-toxic representation of masculinity. Okay. That he gets put on his ass by these bullies and goes about trying to become the world's greatest boxer. But he doesn't do it for revenge. He doesn't do it because he wants to redirect the violence that was put to him. He does it because he looks around at these older brother figures and sees the earnestness with which they're taking to this task, and he decides that is what he's going to do as well. He's going to get the best out of himself. And there are 3 kind of older brother figures in the gym, and everyone is so invested in getting the best out of each other. And so his older brother character figure is a guy called Mamoru Takamura. And as much as Makinuchi is, docile and quiet and polite, this guy is the exact opposite. He's the most Naruto. He has, as I was watching it, Sam Davenport energy. And if ever you needed to see what Sam would look like if he played the older brother in a boxing anime, this is it. And so he's kind of
Does that make me Ippo?
Perhaps. Let's not read too much into it. And so it is so beautiful the way that team sport stuff plays. But then, as you say, you carry the hopes of your gym into the ring, and then no one can help you. It's all on you. Can you put those teachings to use? And I think that all good shonen use the battle sections as character development.
Yes.
And this is what this does. There's this great structure where a couple of episodes will be the build up to the fight, and you'll get the opponent's POV, and it'll be all of the team stuff. But then 4 episodes is just Ippo in the ring, and all told through the action of the fight. And the questions that are raised in that first part are answered in whether he can or can't. And look, he doesn't always win. Another thing I love about it.
Yeah, I love that.
So yeah, it has that team element, but you're right, there's this unique other thing going on too.
Cool.
What's something else as well, and there is a show coming out, I think next season at the time of recording this, 2023, I think it's the fall season, I can't remember what it's called, but it is about car racing. And again, F1, perfect example of a solo sport, but entirely built on the team around you. There's one guy who has to go out and do it, but without that team, he can't do shit. He can't, because it's not a mechanic, doesn't know how to build a car, or change the tires when you know what I mean? There's F1, which again, up until this year, has been one of the great phenomenons of sport, really. I mean, Drive to Survive.
Netflix made their own
they changed the game.
Sport anime, except it was a documentary.
100%. So yeah, another, if Brett, who is our old original host, always like to do this, if you like X, you should watch Y. If you like Drive to Survive, you can watch pretty much any of the sport anime that we're trying to give to you right now. Same with The Last Dance, Cheer, the cheerleading documentary as well, also on Netflix. Netflix are making a bunch of real life.
What was that South Korean one? The Physical 100.
Physical 100, yes.
That was the most
that is anime
thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
It was more anime than literal anime. I was like, how are we here? What is going on?
Yeah.
And
outrageous.
I loved it.
Yeah, incredible. So we're going to keep moving on with these, but we're obviously going to open this up to talking about, especially Gerald and I here, about why we love sport and why we love anime and how these two things can come together so well from stylistic and how they push on the same buttons, At the time of recording this, the Women's World Cup is playing. Women's Soccer World Cup or Football World Cup, depending on, everywhere else is not Australia and America. Football. And Australia is a sport-mad country. So for those of you outside of Australia, we live for this shit, okay? Sport is probably our number one cultural experience. In fact, there's not even a question. It absolutely 100% is. There's nothing else even fucking close.
Yeah.
We do well in film. Not really, but we do well in music. Got some great musicians, some great actors, blah, 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 blah. People have written some cool poems and shit. But sport. Sport is everything to this country, right?
Yeah.
It's number one.
We have to have this conversation almost divorced from nationalism, because neither you or I will get up there and wave the Australian flag. But if one has to belong to a landmass, it may as well be the one that has the most gold medals per capita.
100%.
Right?
100%. Damn right. But it's the thing. It does elicit this weird thing. And again, I'm obviously a massive cricket fan. That's my number one sport, even over AFL, which is Australian football, which is a weird sport that only Australians get into. And even then, not all of us. It's a weird thing. But cricket for me is that thing where I actually get weirdly patriotic, and not into the point where I'm ever going to wave a fucking flag around, but to the point where I'm just yeah, fuck you, England, you fucking jerks. I hate you guys. It just gets me real upset. And the Ashes was very intense. I mean, the fact that we drew is fucking annoying. But anyway, destroyed my sleep cycle for a full month. Anyway, that's what sport does, is when you care about something more than you care about yourself, it giveth and it taketh. But anyway,
I haven't seen people be so excited for a sporting event than I have this World Cup.
It's crazy.
It has been awesome.
And it's fantastic. And also the fact that it's the women's sport, it's actually really, this is a damn good thing. Australia doing a good thing with sport. You know, sometimes, don't get me wrong, sport can get fucking toxic. There's no question about that.
Part of the reason why I love that bit in Ippo so much. So many of the sporting contexts here and around the world get toxic.
Massively. But at the moment, the Women's World Cup currently being held in Australia. Anyway, it's just a very exciting, intoxicating time and a really exciting time for women's sport. And Charlotte will talk to that. Actually, you know what? I think we need to talk about this now.
I will talk about, just going to recommend a quick, before I get to one I'm actually talking about, because it's completely separate from anything, because if anything, it's a disservice to everyone. But if you like soccer, there's a bunch of, I think you're going to talk about one, there is one that I have found that is called Farewell, My Dear Cramer, and it is about an all-female soccer team and is based on a manga. It's actually a sequel to a manga called Sayonara Football, which was really popular. But I think that there's only been an anime adaptation of Farewell, My Dear Cramer. I'll just give you a quick synopsis for it. Sumire and Midori are the stars of their respective middle school girls' soccer teams. As they graduate to high school, they end up joining the eclectic cast of the other new girls at Warabi Seinen High School, with hopes of taking the school's normally poor-performing team to the top. With the help of former Nadeshiko Japan player Naoki Naomi as their new coach, they must find a way to defeat powerful new enemies ranging from other nationally ranked soccer school teams to their own school's administration. So this is going to tick every box we just talked about, right? We've got a poor performing team. We've got a very talented coach who's someone famous, and we've got against all odds, you know, we're versing other schools with underdog story, all female empowerment. By all accounts, it's really wholesome anime. It's not problematic. I have heard the adaptation. I haven't actually watched it. So that's full disclosure here. But I have heard that this one is maybe got a bit of pacing issues, and the animation isn't necessarily outstanding in it. But from I've heard, it's a good story, and it basically sounds like every other sporting anime ever made, but with female soccer players. So I think if you're into the World Cup and you're into that kind of thing, it's great that there is an anime that literally deals with that, which is cool.
Yes, and something we haven't brought up, which probably needs to be brought up and was in the first round of this podcast, but there are so many sport anime and manga, it's almost unbelievable. I mean, there are so many. I was seeing a thing on Mal, which is like the top 24 baseball animes, the top 24. By the way, sumo is the official sport of Japan, but baseball is their national sport. It's their number one by quite a long way. But soccer is also a big one, as it is for most countries, because it is the world's game, obviously. So I'm going to talk about a show that really flew under the radar, but not Gerald and mine.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
For those true aficionados of the sports.
For the true Spokon fans. we found our sports spirit anime here.
Everyone else was walking past the rough, but we were just there on hands and knees,
straight
looking for those diamonds.
Crawling through it. It was incredible. So this show is called Ashi. It aired in spring 2022 and it's made by Production IG, who are one of my favorite anime production studios. They've done a lot of really good. They did Haikyu, which again is, for those of you who haven't listened to this podcast before, and for those of you who have, you're going to hear it again. Haikyu is one of my top 5 animes of all time. It's one of my top 10 things, full stop, of all time. I fucking love Haikyu so much. And you can see the first edition there that I bought back from Japan on the desk for those of you who are watching. And I'm now going to talk about Aoashi because, my God, not a huge soccer fan, okay? I'm getting into the Matildas, which is the Australian football team, but I'm not a huge soccer guy.
This anime got me into soccer.
Yeah, no, it did, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but full disclosure, I'm just slowly accumulating all of sport. Like on my deathbed, I'll have an opinion on Welsh darts, you know? Like, we're not stopping, so...
But Gerald's moved to the country like a couple of years ago, and it's like, bring them all in. You got some time.
Yeah, I've had some time.
You've had some time.
Just me and all my friends.
All the anime, all the sport. It's all happening. Okay. Ashito Ao. Okay. His name is annoying. I'm going to say Ai, but fuck, it's a difficult one. So I'm going to just call him Ashito because, God, it's a hard one to pronounce. It's AOI, but even when they pronounce it in the show, it changes. But anyway, Ashito is a super talented football player in his rural junior high school football team. He's very much the local hero in a one-man band. He's renowned for his unpredictable plays, but is also incredibly self-centered as a player whose only purpose is scoring goals. Now, during a vital inter-school preliminary tournament, Charlotte, Ashito loses his cool after an opposition player says something derogatory about his mum, causing him to be red carded. His team is then quickly dispatched because he's literally the only thing that's good about it. As he feels like all is lost, Ashito is approached by a youth team coach called Tatsuya Fukuda, who sees great potential in Ashito. Fukuda invites him to try out for the junior side of Tokyo City Esperion. Ashito's mother and brother then pool their money together to get him there, and he finds himself in the big city surrounded by extraordinary talent and the opportunity to prove himself and change his life by chasing his dream that only recently seemed entirely out of reach. Now, the thing about this one, Charlotte mentioned Blue Lock before, and for those of you who listen to the podcast, we've talked about Blue Lock a lot when it was airing because it's fucking awesome. But Blue Lock is ludicrous. It is like the perfect example of what we were talking about before with like shonen battle anime meets sport
Lord of
show.
the Flies with soccer.
Lord of the Flies with soccer. It's literally what it is. It's a fucking lunatic show, and I love every second of it. It's why I watch anime, hook it to my veins. But Aoashi is actually quite a slow, burny, intricate look at soccer. I actually learned a lot about soccer watching this show. And again, I mean, maybe someone who knows about soccer is like, that's fucking basic. But like, I knew fuck all and actually learned an awful, awful lot. And it's a really great character study because Ashito is a great character because, again, there's tropes all over this damn thing. If you think there aren't going to be tropes in all of these, you're looking in the wrong place. Why are you watching anime? It's the tropiest thing ever. But they've nailed these tropes in respect to Ashito is the sort of like, he's a bit of a like loose cannon. He's kind of just like, let me score goals. I'm all about scoring goals. But there is a plot twist that comes in the midpoint of season 1, which I won't spoil, but it does really shift the tone of the show. And again, as we mentioned before, the thing about these sports shows is that they really make you care about things that don't really matter, but somehow do so much. And this show does that beautifully. Also, the relationship he has with his brother and his mother is quite beautiful. I think the fact that I think the second or third episode, basically, his mother and him really struggle to communicate. And she's a really hard worker. She's a bartender. She's like working late nights, trying to make ends meet. They live in this really, really, really rural part of Japan. And basically, when it's time to say goodbye, all of his friends take him to the train station, and she's not there. And he's like, fuck, okay, whatever. And then he has a note from her, though. And then he reads this note, and it's really incredibly moving. He reads one of the most beautiful notes, and again, it's like those who can't speak to people, but then go and explain themselves really eloquently and beautifully when they don't normally do so in a letter. And it's a stunning moment where at the end of the episode, he's just sitting on the train, bawling his eyes out from this beautiful note from his mother because it was really hard for him to go there. Like they were really struggling to get him there, right? And then he just has this look of steely determination being like, fucking hell, I'm doing this. And you're just like, fuck yeah, dude, yeah, fuck yeah. You know, like it's a great moment of storytelling. I think it's fantastic.
Him being a fish out of water really helps because the other part of it is like all the other players are kind of from Tokyo and he's the bumpkin from the coast.
Yes.
And yeah, it's just a really great dissection and dramatization of what would life be like in a boys' development soccer club for a professional team. And so, as you said before, if the narrative has to say, sorry, Ashito, you're not as good as you think, it just goes through in granular detail and just rips apart his game to the point that like 7 episodes in, you're like, your positioning is terrible. You know, like, what were you thinking, you know?
Yeah, the fact that some of the players are like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Like, you have no idea how to play this game. You know what I mean? It's like, because he's just like, with his skill set, he's a great skill. His great skill becomes apparent to him. Now, Fukuda sees the skill in him much earlier than he does, which is why he brings him to Tokyo. But again, that's a fascinating journey as well. Someone being so like underdeveloped, being developed by someone who is so far advanced, being like, well, you don't even know what you're capable of, but I do. And I'll get you there, but it's going to be a painful fucking process, you know?
Yeah.
So again, these sorts of things are really fascinating. That's why sport is so interesting.
Well, let's maybe dig into that because, yeah, one of the reasons I really enjoy sport is, A, it's beautiful.
Yes.
I will go to and watch sport for the same reason that people go and see the ballet. Watching LeBron James dunk a basketball is transcendental. You don't have to watch a whole game, Charlie. Just YouTube LeBron James taking a pass from Dwayne Wade and putting it in the cup. And that's everything. That's the human body in motion.
Yeah.
And I think this anime does a really good job specifically because soccer is one of the only sports that take something away from you. You don't get a racket. You don't get this or that. They take away the use of your hands. And I think they do a really good job animating that beauty.
Yes.
But the other part of it is just that, it's not, there's a stereotype that sports for dum-dums. Man, to be a professional sports person, the amount of just positioning and essentially math you have to keep in your mind is incredible. And this anime goes into detail with that.
Big time. Big time.
And that's the way I think when I think of really successful sport animes, how they have the luxury using the anime kind of, narrative structure and the storytelling techniques of being able to like represent it in, it'll suddenly make a grid and you can really go into that in detail. So you learn kind of, and it seems silly, but actually it is kind of making a point. And there's a bunch of, and like, as Sam said, there is every single sport you could possibly imagine.
And then some.
And then some. Like even in this time, I'm thinking about sport animes I've liked, and one has been Yuri on Ice, sport anime about ice skaters. Because ice skating is a sport that I really appreciate, and I watch every year every 4 years at the Winter Olympics, at the Ice Olympics.
That's what it's called.
That's what it's called.
The ice skaters.
But I'm always like, I feel like ice skaters are the least appreciated in terms of skill set. Surely that's the hardest one to do.
It's also because we're from Australia and we just don't understand winter.
Yeah, but you look at, two people I think I've talked about this on this podcast. I'm weirdly passionate about it, but I'm like, you think about having to do a choreographed dance with someone on blades, on ice, whilst like being able to perform, be flexible, be strong. Those people are crazy. They're so talented.
Yeah, they're ballet dancers on knives.
The talent.
And yet 95% of the people watching it just like stack it.
Yeah.
Stack it.
No, some of the shit they do is actually cooked. Like you watch it and you're
incredible.
like, that is actually the most cooked thing I've ever seen a human being do. What the fuck? Like,
And
they're
Yuri
gymnasts, they're dancers, they're performers.
It's wild.
And I've talked about Yuri on Ice before, but I highly recommend it. It is a great show. If you haven't watched it, you absolutely should watch it.
It's also
You
a
will love
yaoi
it.
piece, right?
Yeah, it's great.
Archer comes in like a lion. Shogi sports anime.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
It's great.
Well, I was actually looking up Chiya Yafaru, which is about a girl who plays Karuta, which is an ancient card game in Japan where they have these like traditional poems that play, and basically you have your cards down and their turn, so you have to memorize the way the poems are, and then they'll start playing a recording and you have to flip your card first and have the right one. So it's memory and reflex. And it's a game I've never heard of, a sport I've literally never heard of in my life. Sounds complete, but by the end of that first season, my God, I was so invested.
I've heard it's amazing.
I was like, no, yeah, it's so good because it's about, a young girl playing a game, a sport that is, again, it's like the double whammy of like, only is there no school club, it's like no one plays this anymore. Like it is completely like old school. So yeah, that's also a good one.
It's Madhouse too, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Do you think that a lot of one of the ways that we can explain just the sheer volume of sports anime coming out of Japan is the emphasis placed on sports in the Japanese culture, and specifically high school sports?
Yeah.
Because doing some research for this, I saw that the baseball tournament, Summer Kaisen, is the highest rated thing in Japan every year.
Yeah.
And much in the same way American college sports is a thing. It just seems to capture the whole country. It
does. It's something that Australia doesn't have. You know what I mean? We are sport crazy, but like outside of like the AFL draft, which has a very different system, like the actual school, like in America, the college thing and the school thing is like, back in my school days and I played in that school. Japan, in Haikyu, there is that very strange quote, which I love and hate, don't quite understand, is we don't need the memories of that school's slogan they have. And I'm like, I think that's profound. Like,
the memories are all
but aren't the memories what you do this for? Anyway, I don't know what that means, but it always sits with me. So I think,
and it's as you said, like Friday Night Lights captures that as well. Those kind of shows where you kind of, and cheer as well, because that is the highest you can go in a cheerleading contest is college. It doesn't exist. It actually doesn't exist.
They make no money off it.
It's like, and we're done. And sorry, you trained your entire life doing something incredibly dangerous.
And breaking your body.
Yeah. And now you're done. Get out of here.
It's wild. It's wild. But again, it's time for a philosophy quote about sport, because this is now coming at the perfect time. So this is from The Appreciation of Sport, How the Seemingly Trivial Becomes Essential by Jack Bowen at the Menlo School. Sport is considered by some as trivial. Athletes spending countless hours honing a skill which only has value in the institution of that particular sport. Throwing a ball through a circle in the case of basketball, for example. Though, it is actually because of this that sport and the athletes who play it are worthy of our appreciation. Throughout human history and until recently, we have needed to hunt for our own food, fight in various wars and battles, and yet, at a time of great peace and abundance, sport now fills that niche for many of us. Sport provides a venue in which we can show appreciation on various levels regarding physical accomplishments, moral achievement, and, from there, an appreciation of our own good fortune to even be able to appreciate, which has its own benefits. In doing this, it turns out we may actually need certain mantras in place, often dismissed by those who love sports, such as winning is everything and that sport is a matter of life and death, and other such hyperbole. In addition, we may need to continue the narrative of athletes as making sacrifices, etc., despite the fact that such assertions fall flat outside of the sport's context. In a sense, we're asking of ourselves and those who participate to maintain a sense of dissonance in order that our appreciation rings true with what we would otherwise rightly celebrate and hold dear. I think that's pretty fucking profound. And it makes a lot of sense as to why sport is so important, because it is, even the act of appreciation is something which I think is undervalued. There's another quote in here about that more essentially, but I won't read the whole thing. But to just appreciate something is something which I think is something that should be valued more. And sport enables you to do that in spades.
Certainly, I think it explains why so many of the key characters in sports anime are the supporters and the people that are watching.
Yes.
And that one of the ways in which this narrative has to be told is through the outside as well, you know?
100%. 100%. In fact, you almost can't. Sport to no audience is in many ways pointless. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's not, because of course you've got your own battle to fight and whatever, but like the audience brings it up to a whole new level because other people are hitching their own wagon to you, right? And their own sense of achievement and admiration. And I think it's really, really interesting. So I guess, and you can do it in singular sports, team sports, and yeah, the act of watching, like in Haikyu, you follow the guys, like the ex students, the guys have been there themselves, they've been there, they've done that. They didn't have the success that this team's having, but they are there and they are just living for it. And again, it is that sentimental place of going back to a time when you had the chance to just dedicate yourself to something which you can no longer do in your adult life, when real life, paying a mortgage and having a fucking job and doing all this bullshit. You can't just be like, I just want to go practice my spike. You know what I mean? Like you don't have the time to do it.
You don't have the back for that
anymore. The knees are gone. Like, you know what I mean? But I just think that little place in time, because again, we spoke about in our last episode or 2 episodes ago, nostalgia and how important that is in anime and how important that is in storytelling in general. And I think it's important to humanity full stop, because storytelling is what we do to ourselves all the time. We only communicate really through storytelling, and nostalgia is an important integral factor in that.
I feel like we're meant to be talking about sport and anime, but like we've been let off the leash and now we're just running wild. Charlie, you better bring us back. Give
us an anime before I get too up my own ass about sport.
Okay, well, if you want to be brought back to reality, then this is the wrong anime for me to be talking about. So
taking us to outer space again, Charlie.
I was going to talk about, I had 2, you know, I've been weighing up, and one I have spoken about many times before on the podcast, and there's a different type of genre. There's sports anime, everything you could ever imagine. There's like kind of realistic about anime sense, and you've got your insane ones like Blue Lock, and then you have your even more insane ones that like take a sport and just do something very bizarre with it. So Sk8 the Infinity is a one that pops into my head, which was my favorite sleeper hit of 2020, I think, when it came out.
2020, the best show of 2020.
It was genuinely
so
freaking great.
It tricked me.
I loved it. And I will give a quick synopsis, but I'm actually not going to...
You've seen it, right?
I've seen some of it.
What? Gerald.
I don't want to do right. I just want to say it tricked me because it sets itself up like Haikyu. It's like, here are some boys and they love to skateboard and look at the coast. And then it just goes, and we're just turning the volume up on the weird. And I'm still just recovering from the whiplash of that. But you're about to sell me that I need to go back.
Well, see, when I watch anime, sometimes I'm like, go on, do it. I dare you. I bloody dare you. And Sk8 the Infinity went, all right. And it really met my, it really doubled down on the insanity. So the synopsis is this quickly. In Okinawa, a group of hardcore skaters participate in a secret, no-holds-barred competition after midnight known as S, as in the letter S. Racing each other on skateboards down a winding road carved out of an abandoned mine and occasionally forming rivalries, also known as beefs with each other. Riki, a high school sophomore and hardcore skater, takes new transfer student Langer to S one night and ends up pulling him into the world of skateboarding. So that's like a very vague synopsis. What actually happens here is that it's not just like people doing some speed skating down it's taking anime to the wild, wonderful thing where, there's someone with like a tech board. There's someone that can skate backwards. There's like insane things that are happening. They all wear crazy, well, you can skate backwards anyway, so that wasn't that weird, but like uphill. There's a matador of love who's this like billionaire man who sponsors S. Like for some reason, there's so much money.
Uphill.
Yeah, there's so much money thrown into this underground skating. And also I'm like, why are these high schoolers involved with these full-ass adults?
Matter.
And the whole premise is that Langer is used to snowboard.
Yes, Canadian.
And he's Canadian, and then it turns out that he just naturally can skateboard because I think they're probably really similar and there's not at all any differences.
None.
And I think if you can do one, you can do another.
Zero.
But anyway, that show is ridiculous.
But I love it so.
And it's
Cramer.
heightened.
On the scale of like grounded to heightened, it's like an 11.
It's an 11.
Oh,
yeah.
But this is what anime does. Sometimes some anime bullshit's exactly what you need. Sometimes it's the last thing you need. Often the case, it's the last thing you need.
And you know what you're getting into when you look at the haircuts of every single character and you're like, oh, I don't know. You're like, wow, are they all the protagonists? No. Like, no. Like, it just gets more and more. There's just no side characters here, really. And if you're a side character, you're like maybe a weird cat boy or like, I don't like, just fucking weird.
It's ludicrous. I love it so.
It's good. Season 2
ludicrous.
is going to come out at some point. Apparently, they've been teasing us for months, and that upsets me greatly.
Oh, me too.
It was Studio Bones that animated it.
Bones.
Honestly, it's wonderfully animated. Great. It's actually a really good anime.
No, I'm
like,
sorry.
We're
I won't stand for the slander of Sk8 the Infinity.
but you just have to know what you're getting
I wanted
into.
regionals and instead got the Matador of Love. So
Sometimes this is what you need.
In my research for this episode, I then went, you know what? I really would love to talk about a female-led anime. And there's a lot out there. There's heaps. There's one about a group of housewives after baseball was introduced to Japan who decided to make their own league that sounds sort of like a league of their own, but anime. Didn't watch that one because that actually probably would have been pretty good. And I was like, no, I need something like Sk8 the Infinity. I need my wacky anime twist because I knew you guys would be doing the earnest ones about boxing and stuff, which is completely fair. That's valid, and I don't mean to devalue that, but I sometimes just want the Matador of Love.
Skating uphill.
So I found this show, and also just let it be known that there's a lot of problematic female-led sports anime that is all fan servicey. There's one about wrestling with butts off a platform that the girls compete in bathing suits and try and knock each other off with their bums.
You see, that's when anime bullshit is when you don't need.
And I was just like, okay, I hate that. So I'm obviously not watching that. Awful. This show, honestly, it is problematic, but I just went, all right. So this is a golf anime, actually, and it is called Birdie Wing Golf Girl's Story. And I'll give you, like, I'm just going to have to talk through the opening sequence, but I will talk I'm just going to give a vague synopsis right now. In the European state of Nefris, which I guess is just France.
it's a dangerous sign that they have to create a whole new world for it.
Yeah. A girl named Eve uses her crude yet effective golfing style to act as a ringer and take money from various challenges in unsanctioned golf games, hoping to earn enough to secure a future for her adopted family and their bar. Okay, so that is basically the way that this show opens is you have a golfing competition, like a fully televised, like a touring, like a really professional one, and there's this like famous star, and they're kind of like, oh, is she making a comeback? Like she was injured and yada yada, and she golfs, like she does an okay job, she does all right, and you're like, oh, what is this show? Is it just a golfing anime? And then the girl walks a couple of steps, and then she Mission Impossible style rips her entire face off, and it turns out it's like Eve in disguise, and she's taken the money to pretend to be the retired golfer who's actually injured. So you get this but honestly, it's a Mission Impossible full face rip off. And I'm like, wow, that was a good mask. How does she get
making some calls? He's not going to take that.
He won't. He was like, absolutely not. So you start there and you're like, surely it can't be more bizarre than that. No. It then gets more insane. Basically, these unsanctioned golf games are like, from what I can gather, they just meet secretly on a golf course at night and bet large amounts of money that they can't hit the ball into the hole like in one hit through like weird obstacles. So this one, there's like a train that goes through. But she's like gruff and she only ever plays with 3. I don't know golf. So I was like, I guess as everyone's like, she's only got 3 clubs. Like, I guess that's not. Because she's got no money. So they were like, only 3 clubs? Like, you must be a joke. Anyway, she does like crazy shit where she like hits the ball with such brute force at one point, it goes through a tree and just smashes it in half. And they're like, what's she going to get around the tree? And she just smashes it in half. And I'm like, absolutely, Eve, go off. Anyway, I guess that then it's some weird thing where she makes all this money because she bets with them. But anyway, it turns out.
You seem to imply like a mafia angle here.
There's mafia about to happen.
Excellent.
So anyway, I was like, whatever. This is the rest of the synopsis. However, one day after beating another challenger, Eve meets with a Japanese golfing prodigy, and her name is also Aoi, who manages to defeat her in a 1-hole match. After suffering that defeat, Eve becomes obsessed with her newfound purpose of challenging Aoi to a full 18-hole match and beating her, while Aoi finds herself infatuated with Eve's attitude and determination. However, Eve is forced to battle through various challenges thrown in front of her by the Nefris Mafia, while Aoi's mother and her personal assistant try to get her to focus on her budding golf career. So for some reason, the Mafia are entrenched with golf. And I don't understand why. And it's not explained.
Find this shot.
I loved it. Okay, so this is... Okay, I'm not going to lie. It was a good first episode.
It sounds
I love this show.
Short on action by the sound.
Short on stuff.
So Bandai animated it.
Bandai?
Yep.
Really?
Hugely successful anime. It's had 2 seasons. First season aired in 2022 and the second season aired in 2023.
This year?
Yep.
Really?
Just finished airing. This show also has a Yuri kind of thing to it.
Yeah.
And from
what does Yuri mean?
Yuri is girl on girl is not. Sorry, Yuri is girl love basically. So it's like a lesbian sapphic sort of tone to it. Look, when I say it's problematic, it's just a ridiculous show. There's a couple of fan servicey moments of the main character Eve. Nothing too intense. I think they're in high school though, because I know I read ahead and I know that they end up at some elite school for golfers. So this is ticking every box. You know, it's like, oh, and now we're going to an elite all-girls school for golfing. I was like, I don't think that exists, but sure. Like, let's do that. Like the whole school. And it's like these young women are passionate about golf.
Well, that's cool.
So I love this show. But I love shows like this that really just take it and run. This could be the most problematic show of all time. I'm sorry if it is and you watch it. But honestly, give me a mafia subplot to I don't even know, to anything, particularly golfing. And
what else?
I'm going to watch it.
Yeah,
that sounds interesting. I'll take this recommendation. But it does sound like someone walked into an office to pitch a show about golf, and the guy or the girl was just like, "Oh, golf's a bit boring. Can you spice it up a bit?"
Can I?
So there's this mafia, see?
Yeah.
Mission Impossible angle.
So you know mini golf. I'm thinking. There's trains.
It honestly read like a spy. Yeah, like it was so action packed.
That is funny as fuck.
So yeah, Birdie Wing golf girl story.
Birdie Wing golf girl story.
Yeah. But it reminded me of Sk8 the Infinity, with also there was like a queer romance in that as well, very heavily alluded to. Just taking a sport and just doing whatever you want with it. And I think that if there's any genre that can get away with that, it is anime.
100%.
And I say, go forth.
Go
Birdie
off,
Wing,
Kings.
love it. Love this show. So yeah.
Gonna give that one a go. Sounds good.
It's a really great soundtrack and a great OP as well. So there you go.
Okay.
To draw a line between taking a sport and doing what you want with it, and just to circle back around to Blue Lock.
Of course.
And then to connect to real life, there was this great life imitating art imitating life thing at the most recent men's World Cup, where Japan, the men's team were kind of batting above expectation, and there was a couple of huge moments and huge goals where the Blue Lock energy from the community was finding itself into real sport. And I think the artist helped design their
designed the
uniforms.
jerseys,
And
absolutely.
so that was a great link between sports anime and actual sports.
It was.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of links between those, we really would be remiss not to talk about Slam Dunk. Now, haven't watched too much. I've watched about the first 10 episodes in preparation of this episode, and we are about to go see the film. By the time this episode comes out, it'll probably already be out. But very fortunately, we're able to go and watch the new Slam Dunk film, which is really, really exciting.
Which is being by new company Sugoi, who is their first distribution is Slam Dunk. And apparently, by all accounts, this movie goes off.
It's meant to be
Rave reviews.
it slaps from all accounts, but
It's a real slam dunk.
you couldn't help it, could you?
Couldn't.
But
Can't keep you on the bench.
but slam dunk. Look, basically, if you want to talk about Kuroko no Basket, which is another ridiculous kind of semi.
My favorite show of all time.
So quickly, these cups you might see. Louis Fortunato.
Have we talked about this before?
No, we haven't. So Louis, who came on this show, did the samurai episode. He very kindly made us some mugs, right? Now, mine's obviously Legends of Galactic Heroes, of course, Undisputed King. For those of you who don't know, I crown things the Undisputed King because I'm a fucking ludicrous person. And Legends of Galactic Heroes is one of my favorite shows of all time. Now, for those of you who have watched and listened to this podcast, you know that Charlotte's favorite, or one of her very favorites, is, of course, Fruits
Birdie
Basket.
Wing.
Is outside of Birdie Wing, obviously, is, of course, Fruits Basket. But if you want to hold up that cup, and for those of you who are only
I
listening,
know you can't see it in any
look,
of the...
it has the
You'll be able
word
to see it.
basket in it. And I remember when he's like, I got this for Charlotte. And he gave it to me. And I was like, the fuck is this? And it was, instead of Fruits Basket, Kuroko no Basket. And can you read out the quote, please?
Yeah, there's like a quote. It's like, winning is everything. The victors write history. I was like, okay. And there's like, the only ones who are allowed to look me in the eye as I speak are those that serve me. And then just like, okay, cool.
I guess
I mean, the quote could also play in Fruits
In
Basket.
Fruits Basket.
In this world, winning is everything. And it's close enough. But I just love it. Now I guess Kuroko no Basket is my favorite anime.
Yeah.
I mean,
Charlotte's
Kuroko no
favorite show.
Basket is actually in between the insane and the
Yes, it is.
there's bits where
Yes.
he's meant to be like sneaky and he like goes invisible. Like it kind of is a bit on the Birdie Wing, Sk8 the Infinity.
Yeah, it's on
edge. Like it's really straddling that
I
line.
fell out of it for that reason.
Yeah, me too. Like,
Turns out
Kuroko no
I'm a real
Basket.
grounded sports anime guy,
Yeah.
Don't want too much pepper on
Well, it's
my
like if you're
pancakes.
gonna do it, go all the way. Do a Birdie Wing. Don't
Do a Sk8 the Infinity. Do
Yeah.
a Blue Lock. It's like
Yeah.
it kind of lives in this weird space between like Ashi and Blue Lock. It's weird. But the progenitor of that is, of course, Slam Dunk. Now, Slam Dunk is very much, and you can really see, this one is huge. 1994, this came out. But just to give you an idea of just how much of an influence this show has had, it has sold 170 million copies, or they're released in circulation at the moment. It's the 7th best-selling manga series in history. And yeah, so in 1994, it received the manga award for the shonen category. But in 2010, Inoue, who is the mangaka who also did Vagabond, which Gerald is a huge fan of, and I'm currently reading, and it's absolutely extraordinary. So Inoue received special commendations from the Japan Basketball Association for helping popularize basketball in Japan. Quite literally, like, it was as if the NBL in Australia, or the NBA, was like, this artist literally helped make this sport popular in this country by making his art. That's what that award was given to him for, right? Crazy stuff. And you can see, again, it's a very much a real life. It's much more real life, realism type show. Basically, the lead character is very much a kind of delinquent figure, incredibly athletic, but has no idea how to play basketball, falls in love with this girl and wants to impress her. Her brother is the head of the basketball team. She's obsessed with the new genius. Again, you see all these tropes, the new sort of genius basketball player who's in the same year as the lead character. And then basically he tries to like impress her by joining the basketball team. He lacks all the skills, but has the physical attributes, and then hilarity ensues. So we'll go from there. But look, I've watched the first 10 episodes and it is dated, heavily dated. I think reading the manga would be the way to go. I haven't actually read the manga yet, but I really enjoyed the first 10 episodes. There are some pacing issues and some problems, but from what it's the 7th best selling manga of all time. It's an absolute classic. I will read it because Inoue is such an extraordinary artist. I mean, Vagabond's one of the most beautiful artistic works I've ever seen. And yeah, from all accounts, Slam Dunk, absolutely extraordinary. But again, couldn't mention Spokon without mentioning Slam Dunk. It's that much of a cornerstone of the genre. And yeah, but basically, anyone else got anything else they want to add about Spokon, about sport, anime, about anything else? Obviously, we haven't talked as much about Haikyu as I'd like, but we've talked about it a lot in the past, so we'll probably let that slide. But my God, if you take nothing else out of this, watch Haikyu, for the love of God. And all these other shows. But Jerry, what are your thoughts? Anything to add to finish off this episode?
just to do the final sell on how sport and anime, and especially in the West, like the imagining of the anime fan, like is slightly different from the sports fan. But sport as a vehicle for narrative is just almost unmatched. And I follow sport essentially because it's just reality TV.
Yes.
It's just the many different teams that are going through their different struggles, and the Japanese anime industry have been so potent at mining what makes following a sports team great in real life, and even better because it's made up and it's stories and dramatized and it's great. So if you haven't given it a shot, it's a very deep well, and jump right in.
Absolutely.
Were you ever into wrestling?
No.
Because that's an even more of a, I reckon, like as in WWE is in that kind of like that world of wrestling is even more of another step towards anime vibes of
100%.
Like that is soap opera. That is
100%. I was a huge wrestling fan as a teenager. And yeah, of course, what are the two other major wrestling places outside of America? Mexico and Japan. Yeah. There's a reason for that,
I will say that in September, I'm going to, or rather early October, going to be in Japan and going to be in Fukuoka, and I'm going to see a baseball game. So I'll be able to report back on the spirit in
the spirit.
real life.
I am also going to be in Fukuoka in early October. So maybe I'll see you at a baseball game. Maybe I'll become a baseball gal myself. Actually, I've got a friend, shout out to Kieran, who's going to be a guest on who's at Fukuoka right now for the swimming. World.
He is.
And I find that interesting because whenever I think of swimming, I think of Free.
Another seminal sports show.
Which is a sports show which they come to Australia, and I've never been. And I talk about this all the time. It's still my favorite thing to see Central Station animated in anime. It looks so
pretty badass.
Beautiful.
Pretty crazy, isn't it?
It's so cool.
Actually, let me finish on one more sports yarn. So connected to the baseball game in Fukuoka, there's a Japanese pitcher called Kodai Senga. And talk about a real life story that's essentially just a shonen who played for the Fukuoka team, but he got drafted as kind of like the last pick. And in the Japan sporting system, you've got your top tier guys, your elites, and then your like workhorses. And if you're in that bottom rung, you just kind of have to carry the cones and just run around like a dunce, and you're not really taken seriously. And so to make it from there is to climb all the way from the concrete to the top.
Yeah.
And so the way that this guy did it is that Kodai Senga created a pitch that the world had never seen before. It's called the ghost fork. You have to like hold the baseball like weirdly in your hands, and it comes out of the hand like a fastball and just dies. And so this guy, after rising to the top of the Japanese baseball league, which is unlikely in and to itself, got drafted to Major League Baseball. It's his first season with the New York Mets, killing it. Made an all-star. And you go and Google clips of Senga on the mound. It's a thing of beauty, And so the Japanese don't have to look far for their great sporting stories.
Literally. That is a literal Spokon.
This man has lived the
anime.
shonen, yeah.
Yes. He's also
Tearing up thinking about it, thinking about that entire episode.
That's like 5 series right there.
Don't get me started on Shohei Ohtani. Anyway.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I just want to talk about quickly, Birdie Wing also has a video game that has been released, and I just really hope that it's like The Simpsons golf. What is it again?
You commit right now to playing it for the content?
Absolutely.
Yes.
But what's The Simpsons one where it's like, you have selected? No.
Lee Carvello's putting challenge.
Yeah, I really hope that Birdie Wing is like that. You have selected.
Select a putter. You have selected one wood. Might I suggest feather touch? You have selected power drive.
Honestly, that is the plot of Birdie Wing. She would just select power drive the whole time. So there you go, crossover. Got The Simpsons in finally.
We got it. We got to do it all the time. But no, look.
I want to ask a quick question though. I want to ask you if you could belong to any sports group or any sports, in particular, like in anime, fictitious. Yes. Any kind of sports club or any club in general, what would you pick for yourself?
Karasuno Crows, come on. Obviously.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what position would you play?
Ace.
Okay.
Got the height,
I'm going to go with is it called the Body Improvement or the Self-Improvement Club from Mob Psycho? Just seems like a good vibe. They seem
the
positive.
Best vibes, dude. They're bringing the vibes.
Yeah.
Man. That's true.
I'll probably learn a thing or two there, I reckon.
Jerry.
Look, I'll just have to join the AOSC gang
Oh,
because
really?
I'm certainly not getting in the
Aspirian.
boxing ring. That's not what all this was built for.
Outstanding. Well, thank you so much for joining us on our Sport 2.0 episode. So much fun. Gerald and I got to talk about the things we love. Charlotte got to talk about some crazy shit, and that is fantastic. We love this. Again, it's a good example of just how broad this genre and medium is. There's so much there. And again, as you sort of touched on a bit before there, like, you don't have to be a sport fan to enjoy Spokon or sport anime. You just don't need to be at all. Sure, it helps, but like you can just find it. It ticks all the narrative boxes you need without having to be some kind of like lifelong sport fan. So I think that's really cool. You know,
It's like, oh, we get it. It's like, you don't.
yeah.
Listen.
Listen, it's awesome. It's so much fun. And again, without diverting this off to something while I'm trying to wrap up, like, again, something we have talked about before is that why do we not see anywhere near as many serialized American sport shows as anywhere near compared to what we do in anime, right? Like tons of sport movies. Obviously, you've got your Mighty Ducks, you've got Major League, you've got all these incredible sport films, but we do not see outside of Friday Night Lights. And of course, more recently, Ted Lasso, which is a big one, which has kind of come out of, or really did come out of nowhere during COVID, right? I mean, I would argue that the first season's the only good season of that show and the last two fucking stink, but that's a conversation for another time. But
It's often like a
interesting.
subplot, I'm thinking of like One Tree Hill, where
Yeah, he plays football for a bit or
basketball.
Yeah. Yes.
How dare you? Oh,
Was Chad
Hey.
Michael Murray? What the fuck happened to him?
Lucas is a basketball player. No, I think it's always a subplot, but it's never really the main. Although there was a couple of like, there was a bit of a trend briefly. There's like a roller derby one. There was like a gymnastics one. There was a couple of have come out.
But there are lots and lots and lots of sport documentary serialized dramas like Cheer, Drive to Survive, Body 100 or whatever it is.
Physical 100.
Physical
I
100.
wouldn't call that a documentary as much as a reality TV show
TV,
competition.
Yeah, but the documentary style or their sort of reality TV style, right? But like actual serialized fictional sport show. I mean, Friday Night Lights is obviously the best example of it. You just don't see that many. But in anime, there are just so many examples. And we did explore this topic a bit more in the first episode. You can go back and listen to that, episode 5 of our podcast from way back in the day. But anyway, we'll leave that one up to you. Tell us why. Tell us why you think there aren't enough American shows that do this and why anime does it special. Tell us your favorite shows. Someone did hit us up last time about an archery show, which I can't remember the name of, and I'll dive back into our Instagram messages, but please hit us up on the social media. Tell us what shows we're missing, what weird sports anime are there that you've watched that we haven't. Again, got to check out that archery show. That was a really, really good recommendation because, again, everything you could imagine.
There's so many cycling shows.
Yeah.
Prince of Tennis.
Cycling shows.
I wish I'd watched Prince of Tennis. That's an iconic one.
Initial D, always been on my list.
Initial D, speaking
Absolutely.
of racing. Yeah, like there's just so many. And tell us your favorites. And of course, hit us up on all of our social media. You can find us on www.gatewaytoanime.com. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, which you're hopefully watching us on. Of course, wherever you find your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, wherever else you might find. Pocket Cast is pretty cool too. But of course, if you really like what we're doing, you can find us on Patreon, www.patreon.com/gatewaytoanime. Really small little operation, so every little bit helps. If you want to buy a t-shirt, you can do that as well. You can find that on our website or through our Instagram store or through our Patreon. So honestly, thank you so much, Gerald. It is always an absolute pleasure to have you in, man. You are our number 1 returning guest. I think this is your 6th episode with us, which is really exciting. And always a pleasure to prick your brain, mate. Love having you on.
Next
That was
time,
so much fun.
Skip and Loafer, 3-part series with Gerald and Charlie.
We've got a deep dive.
Deep dive.
Deep dive. Honestly, thank you all so much. And we'll catch you all next time. Have a good one. Bye.